At the same time as there is a conference, I think, I think hosted by Saudi Arabia and France, talking about the recognition of Palestinian state, hosted in America, by the way, in the United Nations. Uh, at the same time, while Trump is in the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, is talking about possible recognition of the Palestinian state. Now, that would mean we would have, on top of France, this would pretty much be another big, very influential Western nation that basically goes out of their way to say, if you want to achieve some goal in your life, you should go and kill Jews and you'll actually get something for it. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Today we'll be talking about specifically this. Keir Starmer talking about the recognition of the Palestinian state. Now he put some conditions on it, but I don't think any conditions are, well, besides sort of the Palestinian culture fundamentally changing for the better. I will take that condition, but it's nothing like that. Joining me today for the Daily Objective is James Valiant. James, any opening thoughts for Sir Keir Starmer's
Well, this is
idea?
astonishing to me. It is the most remarkable kind of appeasement. It's like Neville Chamberlain and Adolf Hitler in the 1930s. Do you really believe that having a Palestinian state is their goal, to coexist in harmony and peace with Israel? No. They've had many opportunities for a Palestinian state. Just fully recognize Israel, agree to live in peace with them. That's all it takes. The reason why we don't have a Palestinian state today is because they don't want to coexist with Israel. And Israel had unilaterally withdrawn from Gaza about 20 years ago, and they've had, in effect, in Gaza, a Palestinian state. And did they do anything to be at peace with Israel when Israel forcibly relocated their own people out of Gaza and really left Gaza to its own devices? No. They pulled up, they immediately started launching rockets at Israel, and their attacks on Israel climaxed on October 7th, 2023, with atrocities. So, this naive view of Western leaders, the president of France and the prime minister of Great Britain, that all we have to do is see, this will create a permanent, peaceful, stable solution if we just recognize a Palestinian state. It is total nonsense. That is not the goal of the Palestinians. The goal of the Palestinians is truly a genocidal one. They do not want to recognize Israel. They do not want to live in peace with Israel. I mean, that is absolute nonsense. And it is counterproductive, as all appeasement is. If you reward a Hitler for taking over, a chunk of Czechoslovakia, that will not prevent him and say, okay, we've achieved peace in our time. Just recognize that. But before you know it, he's invading Poland and France. Similarly here, if you reward the Palestinians for doing October 7th, which this unmistakably is, you will only be encouraging more October 7ths. You'll only be encouraging their behavior and giving them moral credence for what they did on October 7th. Oh, you see, it's because we didn't give them a Palestinian state before, when in effect we have. So President Macron is just completely out of bounds. And it's crazy for me to say out loud that the Prime Minister of Great Britain is actually a little more sane, because he says it should come with conditions, the release of a more permanent solution. But, a ceasefire is only going to give them time to breathe. But if Starmer looks, a micron more rational than his Labour MPs or the president of France, that shows you how desperate a situation we are in terms of the mushy-headed approach that Western leaders have been taking to this. Thank goodness Trump, while he is playing golf in Scotland right now, the United States and Israel are not participating in this meeting. For Saudi Arabia, of course, it's the recognition of that is a sort of a condition for peace with Israel. They say, well, we won't have a permanent, peace with Israel. But who the hell wants permanent peace with Saudi Arabia, a dictatorship? But in any event, even if that were your goal, they are insisting on it. France is insisting on it. And somehow they think that by giving a Palestinian state, that will somehow appease the jihadists in the West Bank and Gaza, or Hezbollah, or the Houthis, or Iran. It won't. They want the destruction of Israel. It's in their charters, it's in their goals, it's the way they behave. They want to kill as many Jewish civilians as they possibly can until that attitude, that culture changes. That attitude of collectivist tribalism based on this savage mysticism that still governs their cultures. As you point out, it's the Palestinian culture that's the problem, not recognizing some state. Recognizing some state is simply to appease them, reward them, and it's some weird kind of pie in the sky view that somehow, if you recognize their state, suddenly October 7th won't happen anymore. They'll want to live in peace and harmony with Israel. Absolute nonsense. So, America and Israel are not participating in this. They've correctly identified this as rewarding the Palestinians for doing something horrific. At least to that extent, Israel and America are obviously on the better side of this, although they are by no means they by no means have the moral clarity to actually deal with Palestinian culture, which is the root cause of this problem. Yeah.
Yeah, although I do want to cover something Trump has said. But first, yeah, absolutely. Palestinians and Hamas, they do not want peace, but they do want a ceasefire. They want the end to the military activities of Israel. They want for Israel to basically stop defending itself or stop engaging in this war, which again, the goal of should be, well, ideally should be the end of Palestinianism, basically the end of this ideology that is calling for the destruction of the Israeli state. But at the very least, it should be about the occupation of Gaza. Um,
No, well, what we need is an occupation, a full on occupation. That's the only correct response in the wake of October 7th. I mean, honestly, more than a year ago, most of the place should have already been rubble. They shouldn't have no duty to feed the enemy population, which is what they're trying to do. But no, it's Netanyahu that's called the genocidal one, when in fact he's busy trying to feed the enemy population. When in fact he could have wiped out the Palestinian populations of Gaza and the West Bank already, just with conventional weapons months ago. And of course, Netanyahu is the one called genocidal, which of course is an intentional perversion of the truth, a redefinition of what it is. Netanyahu's engaged in unprecedented steps for a country at war in a perfectly legitimate self-defensive operation. But the approach that Britain and France, and it seems like the Duchy of Luxembourg, are engaged in is just simply going to recognize a Palestinian state so long as Hamas agrees to a ceasefire and in terms of Starmer, agrees to release the hostages. Really, is that going to do it for you? You really think that's going to permanently bring peace and suddenly they'll want to live in peace and harmony with Israel? That is such nonsense. No, all they will do is perpetuate the conflict. Sometimes I get the impression that diplomacy is really only a way of prolonging a crisis, and making it permanent. What is the purpose of diplomacy with monstrous, aggressive dictatorships? It can only be the prolongation of a crisis.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, when people talk about sort of Israel committing a genocide, or I think you've mentioned something similar to that. Again, it's just projection. It's just looking at or sort of trying to put on Israel what actually has been done to the Jews in the past. Is actually trying to put on Israel what Palestinians have been trying to do to the Jews in the recent memory. So sort of going back to the main topic, so Keir Starmer is planning to basically share the framework for the recognizing of the Palestinian state. Basically, he's going to share it with close allies, surrounding Arab states, and of course America. Um, Now, when uh, when a spokesperson was asked about what is it going to include, they've answered, "This plan is designated to chart a path to peace and outline the steps necessary to achieve it. I can't go into details, but as we've made clear, recognition of a Palestinian state must be part of the broader process toward the two-state solution, one that delivers lasting security for both Palestinians and Israelis." And I mean, again, what is the need for like he talks about lasting security for Palestinians? Where is this example of like the Israeli state going after Palestinians, going after the surrounding Arab states and simply trying to conquer them, simply trying to wipe them out. There is no like there is we have no need to have a lasting or to create the lasting security for Palestinians. They have it by default, at least from the Israeli side. Um,
Israel could have continued its full occupation of both the West Bank and Gaza had it wanted to. No, in fact, as I mentioned earlier, for the better part of 20 years now, Gaza has been basically left to its own devices. And so we've had a two-state solution in Gaza for the better part of 20 years, and this is what you get for it. Now, I know it's not officially hasn't been officially recognized by people, but do they really think the difference is official recognition? If Israel wanted to fully occupy those places, they could. They have the military capacity to do so. Israel does not have hostile intention towards the people as such. They're fighting for their survival. They're fighting for their survival. And in recognizing a Palestinian state, Monsieur Macron and Mr. Starmer, what you're doing is you're actually creating security for them to continue their attacks on Israel. They say security for both Israel and the Palestinians. No, in recognizing the Palestinian state at this point, they're undermining Israeli security because that is all Israel's concern has been, is their own security. They just want to live in peace. And all you're doing is undermining Israeli security, gentlemen. Gentlemen, I'll put in quotes there.
um, Wait, I'm gonna have to confirm something because I see news saying UK will recognize Palestinian state if Israel doesn't commit to a ceasefire, which I've read the opposite, that basically the demand is for Hamas to accept the ceasefire. So I'm gonna shoot something to you and then I'm gonna confirm that and then we can talk about it. But sort of a separate thing I want to bring up is so Trump ahead of the meeting, he said that he would not object if Starmer advocated for recognizing the Palestinian state, although he would not do so himself. So at least he has the clarity to, well, maybe not clarity, something, an inkling of not doing that so himself. But he said, quote, right now I'm focused on feeding people. That's the
Feeding.
top priority because there are a lot of hungry people. And we'll
That's,
talk about that more on the reality show, specifically his comments. But again, it's,
that's Trump's position right now.
yeah.
Trump is saying, okay, continue your talks about all this, but I'm concerned about feeding the people right now. Oh boy, isn't that, isn't that thrilling? But at least he's not participating in this conference. And at least he's not putting on the table any more such offers, and certainly not the offer of recognizing a Palestinian state, which makes Trump, I guess, a good step better than Starmer and Macron, but only a step better. He's still concerned about feeding these people, and he's still open to negotiating a deal. That, I guess, is the official U.S. position right now.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of reports. So this has actually happened in the last half an hour. So first, what we had is sees that basically it's going to be some sort of a framework to recognize the Palestinian state. But now Keir Starmer is saying if Israel doesn't commit to a ceasefire, if Israel doesn't uphold the ceasefire or create a ceasefire, UK will recognize the Palestinian state. This is straight up. What do you call it? Blackmail. This is straight
Blackmail.
up blackmail, like
Yeah,
and moral blackmail. At that,
absolutely.
it's the
He's coercing Israel. He's attempting to coerce Israel. It's his extortion on Israel. Stop your activities, give them the ceasefire, or we will immediately, with or without any deal, recognize a Palestinian state. Is that what I'm hearing? Good God. Well, is he going to require that the hostages at least get released before recognizing a Palestinian state? Or will this Palestinian state get recognized even as it's holding innocent civilian hostages? Despicable.
so. Here is the quote. Un unless he he said he will recognize the Palestinian state before the UN General Assembly. Quote, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, reaches a ceasefire, makes clear that there will be no annexation in the West Bank, and commits to a long-term peace process and that it delivers a two-state solution. So again,
No
uh,
mention of the hostages there, huh?
no, Netanyahu needs to realize that the world will hate Jews, as I've said, no matter what he does.
Well, we
So
know you're
if he
safe.
actually wants for Israeli state to persist, if he actually wants the Israeli state to survive, he just needs to do what is necessary, meaning occupation in Gaza, no more humanitarian aid, no more supporting of our enemies, no more basically supporting the people who want the Jews killed. Palestinians, there is, even when there is like sort of like people standing up in Gaza, it's not, oh, maybe we shouldn't kill Jews. No, it's maybe we shouldn't kill Jews for now because it's not really a good position to be in right now. So no, absolutely. At this point, Israel needs to go fully in. It
Right.
tried many times to make peace with Palestinians. I think every single time it was wrong to even try,
Fine.
because even the first time that there was talk about peace, it was because of the first Intifada. So again, the only time Palestinians felt that they are listened to is when they committed to violence. And this is the kind of culture that both the international community and Israel itself has fed to the Palestinians. That basically, if they commit violence, they'll be rewarded. So
One
they
more
need to
time.
learn as a culture that uh, this cannot be a way of life.
No, Western nations want it to be one more time. Appease them for their violence. I mean, with the Oslo Accords were just so misbegotten an idea. Leaving Gaza 20 years ago was such a misbegotten idea that, okay, look at what the result is when you do that. This is that in spades. If Israel were to go along with this, but this would be totally rewarding them for their violent activities and giving them an official launching pad for their attacks on Israel. No, this has nothing to do with Israeli security. Israel has to completely ignore this. Their security interests are being entirely ignored in all of this. So Israel has to completely ignore this, and do what's necessary. I mean, what you're saying then is, well, no occupation of Gaza. That means give a ceasefire now. Okay, so give them all the breathing space. And so just when the population of Gaza might be getting through their head that they'll suffer as a result of something like October 7th, what you got to do is you got to rush in, give them breathing space, give Hamas breathing space, demand a ceasefire, demand recognition, tell Israel it can't go in and occupy. Okay, that's really going to help things. Quite the opposite. What you're doing is you're rewarding, encouraging, morally appeasing evil in this proposal, Mr. Starmer. And consider, he's the one who sounds, a little more rational. France would just go right ahead and recognize a Palestinian state right now. He's the one saying it has to be tied to a quote more permanent solution. But this more permanent solution is actually against Israeli security. They don't give two craps about the security of Israel. In Britain or in France, the entire United Nations is filled with anti Semitic dictatorships that hate Israel already. But it's really disturbing when you see it on the part of Western leaders like the President of France or the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I mean, just something to mention, something that I've seen recently. Uh, And we'll talk more about this on the reality show, the way the sort of starvation propaganda has been used. But I have a question for you, James. There is this agency, of course, UN agency, because why have anything outside of the UN? But it's called the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification. It's basically meant to be, it's sort of like a system to classify if there is starvation, and if there is starvation, what kind of it is. Like, what is the food security in the region? And now we are seeing how basically Gaza is in the worst scenario it's ever been. And question for you: how much worse do you think it is now than it was on October, right after October 7? Twice as bad, three times as bad, five times as bad?
As bad?
It's better.
Come on.
It's better. It's better right now than it was right
Absolutely.
after October 7th.
That's the point. I mean, it's not as bad as it was on October 7th. If anything, it's better. They have more food and water rushing in there from all kinds of, and at the insistence of the United States and Israel. Now consider that. Israel and the United States are busy rushing food in, but airdrops are not good enough. And if, Americans or Israelis do it, that's not good enough. What, unless you hand the food straight over to Hamas, it's not good enough for you? I mean, my God, no. If anything, the humanitarian situation. I mean, Israel will announce, we've said this many times, Israel will announce before they bomb a building, get out of the building. They're reducing casualties. They're insisting on feeding the enemy population, even as during a rational self-defensive war. This is moral perversion. This is getting it upside down. No, the people of Gaza ought to be suffering more than they were before October 7th. But as you point out correctly, it's not as bad as it was on October 7th. If anything, it's better in terms of access to food for people who don't have or aren't living in a civilized area. I mean, my God.
And just to make a point of that, that's not a good thing. They shouldn't have more access to food. They've started the war. They shouldn't be able to be in like a not comfortable situation because even if I go to that agency, which I don't know if how much I can trust, but if I go to that, it's still basically food insecurity. But again, there should be food insecurity. They should feel insecure about food. They've started a war. There is a war going on, and when for the war to end, it rarely ends for when it comes to ending a war. It rarely ends when a country gets fully occupied. That's really rare and happens very like almost never. Uh, what usually happens is the country gives up because usually because they start running out of food that or basically they eat through all of their productivity because as much as Anna Kasparian would like to say that war is this productive effort, the fact is that war is not really producing anything. It's really destructive. It really is destroying the productivity of everything you've produced in the past. And at some point, you'll run out of the sort of stored production from the past. But Palestinians are being supplied constantly by Israel, by America. Yesterday I was with you, the day before I was with Alex, and we had a quote from Trump who said something like, we gave 50 million or 50 billion to Gaza and nobody even said thank you to us. We are the only ones who are like giving money. And
They're expecting a thank you. Think about how twisted the cognition of Western leaders are. I don't care if it's Macron, Starmer, or Mr. Trump. You're really in a weird frame of mind where you're disconnected from the facts of reality. It's Palestinian culture that is the problem. They ain't going to thank you. In fact, every time you try and feed them, they get the idea, oh, we are the good guys. They recognize we're the good guys. And so we are going to be supported. In fact, they're going to feed the enemy population. During World War II, in even the good guy side, there was rationing. There were food shortages in the United States and Great Britain. They had to ration important supplies, and they were the good guys on the side of the war. Because what? They have to just direct all of the resources towards fighting the war. Wars are destructive things. Wars are not productive things. Wars disrupt everything good, any productive activity, any peaceful activity going on in the area. And the people who start the war and bring it on are in fact the people who have to suffer. And if there are innocent, to the extent that there are innocent, and I don't know to what extent there are, quote, innocent Palestinians, I'm sorry. It is the Palestinian people and their culture that have started and are continuing and are relentless about their assault on Israel. No, they have to suffer. That's what war is. When you start a war, you expect to suffer. And until and unless they do, the security of Israel and, in fact, the lack of oppression on whatever innocent Palestinians there may be is never going to end. No, quite the opposite. They've got it completely upside down. I see starving Palestinians, says Mr. Trump. What I'm concerned about right now is feeding the people. Oh, my God. It's the same naivete that says, well, just give them the Palestinian state. And boy, they'll suddenly want to live in peace and harmony with Israel. How many times have we lived through the exact opposite? How many chances for real peace have they had that they turned down? That is not the context. Obviously, through my entire life, that is not the factual context of the situation. It is absurd. It is fairy tale thinking. And these are supposed to be the hard headed, realpolitik, pragmatic diplomatic leaders of the Western world. The president of America, France, and the prime minister of Great Britain. Yeah. Well, what a pathetic state. What a pathetic cognitive state the leaders, these hard headed, pragmatic leaders of the West, of the great Western powers, are in, frankly. It's remarkable.
Yeah, and if you don't want to see the pictures of children dying, well, stop looking at those pictures. The fact is that, yeah, children die in the war. This is
Go take a
the
look at the
terrible.
picture, the videos from October. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go take a look at the pictures of what happened on October 7th.
Yeah,
Good. Well,
I mean, well, I mean, kinda, but also, yeah, like this is what happens in a war. Like people
yeah,
die. That's why you try to, well, first don't start it, and when you do, try to end it as soon as possible. You don't
as
end it
quickly and
by
decisively
rewarding
as
it.
possible. As quickly and decisively as possible. And that is not the way we fight wars anymore. That's not the way America fights wars anymore. And now you can see it's not the way Israel fights wars anymore. That the only good thing about war is its successful and quick termination. And that means utterly defeating the enemy so that they completely and unconditionally surrender. To do that, you must psychologically break them as quickly as possible for the sake of everyone involved so we can get back to peaceful, productive existence. This is the perpetuation of war forever. The recognition of a Palestinian state would be the perpetuation of war forever.
Well, we'll continue talking about this on the reality show, where we'll talk about how to get away with murder, the Palestinian edition, where we'll talk exactly about it, how Palestinians committed October 7 and now are viewed as victims. So join us for that in just a few minutes. And we also have the Irreplaceable Spark Conference coming up. It's a bit sharp twist to go from something so negative to something as positive as the Irreplaceable Spark Conference. It's important to remember that values are still achievable even in this unfortunate circumstances. And one way to achieve those values is to have a proper system, a proper philosophy, a proper understanding, as well as experience. Or sort of knowledge from people who are already successful. So, if you'd like to meet some of those successful people who achieved a great amount of values, a great amount of success in their own lives, you can check out the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, objectivism.co.uk. James, any last thoughts and where can people find you?
Well, you'll find me in October in Orange County at the Irreplaceable Spark Conference because I want to see successful, happy people and hear from them and find out what makes people happy and successful. Talk about, yeah, a wonderful contrast to the grim news, of international politics. Obviously, that's not a happy situation. But where you can find me is here, ladies and gentlemen, in the Ayn Rand Center, UK. But you have to be a paid subscriber to get some of the material I do, such as the seminars I lead on Leonard Peikoff's work, where we study objectivism, that philosophy of success and happiness, which can be instrumental to your own well-being, even in a crazy, grim world like the one we live in today.
And we have the reality show coming up, so link to that is in the chat. We'll see you there in just a couple minutes or so. Thank you, James, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye bye.
Be safe.